Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, just morning. And Grady, your pronunciation was perfect. Talisman's an unusual junior explorer in that we have an iron ore royalty that funds all our activities, and because we have that, we go chasing company-making discoveries that other juniors either can't sustain the longevity of exploration for that, and we believe that we're onto a couple of those sorts of things in South Australia and New South Wales, which I'll elaborate on in a moment or two. We have 3 assets, as I mentioned, so we have a relatively simple business. The iron ore royalty is at Wonmunna in the Pilbara of Western Australia. The exploration assets are in a large land holding in the Lachlan Fold Belt, in the base metals rich Lachlan Fold Belt, and the Mabel Creek project, which is an IOCG, an iron oxide copper gold project in South Australia. But before we start talking about the assets themselves, a little bit on the corporate structure and the shareholders. So 188 million shares on issue, an undemanding enterprise value of a bit over $35 million, $6 million in the bank, and as I mentioned, the ongoing iron ore royalty, which keeps that refreshed. So we like to operate between about $5 million and $8 million continuously, just in case opportunities come up that will fit the bill for us. The major shareholder is a gentleman called Kerry Hermanus. Kerry has an outstanding history in the junior resource space, having operated and managed Jubilee Mines, which is one of the great success stories of the junior space more than a decade ago now. And Talisman has the DNA of Jubilee in it, with Brian Dawes on the board and with Jeremy Kirkwood on the board. So, the aim of those 3 gentlemen and the board in general is to, if we can, repeat the success of Jubilee, which went from about a $50 million junior through to a $3.2 billion sale to Xstrata over about 5 or 6 years, founded on Australia's highest grade nickel discovery back in about 2007, 2008. So that's the dream for shareholders and the board alike, to be able to replicate, at least in part, the success of Jubilee. The assets, I'll deal with the revenue-making asset first. So this is Wonmunna. We have a 1% royalty over the production that MinRes manage. So MinRes have a project that they call a Pilbara Hub. Wonmunna makes up about 50% of the Pilbara Hub's export that they mine, truck and ship out of Port Hedland. So the Pilbara Hub does about 10 million tonnes a year. Wonmunna is about 50% of that feed, and we take a 1% royalty on Wonmunna. Recent history, it yielded $8.6 million for us last financial year, $2.5 million for us last quarter, and about $25 or $26 million over the life so far, which started in March 2021. So it's about 3.5 years, nearly 4 years it's been operating. The current pit that MinRes are mining at Wonmunna has about 2 years of production left in it, and then beyond that there's 55 million tonnes of resource that MinRes are drilling out at the moment. Now, how much of that will convert to ore reserve, I think you'll see in the back half of 2025 or calendar 2025. MinRes start to bring that to account. It's a similar grade to the material that's being exported at the moment, so the conversion rate of that 55 million tonnes should be reasonably high. But I don't speak for MinRes, and we'll have to wait and see what MinRes are able to produce out of the drilling programs that they're currently undertaking. But we're reasonably confident there'll be significant extensions beyond the 2 years that the current open pit has. New South Wales. So we have 6,000 square k's in the Cobar Basin, famous for high-grade copper, lead, zinc, gold, silver deposits. They tend to be relatively short strike length but very deep kind of deposits. So they extend from near surface down plus 1,000 metres in several cases. We've been exploring mostly at a project called Durnings in the very southern part of our holding. We are the dominant landholder around that Durnings area. There is an operation just recommenced owned by Kingston Resources at Mineral Hill, which is about 10 k's north of Durnings. But we are the dominant landholder on that whole project. We have about 10 or a dozen prospects there. Durnings itself is one, but we have others, Blind Calf that has some high-grade copper, and a number of others that range from anything from old prospectors' shafts with no drilling through to more advanced drilled out projects. We like Durnings because it was a new discovery for us about 12 months ago. It's high grade. It has a solid geophysical signature that we can follow to intersect some of these high-grade veins, and you can see some of the intersections on the screen. It typically is in the 10 to 15% combined lead and zinc with a 2 to 4 ounce silver credit, with a little bit of gold in some cases, a little bit of gold and copper in some cases, but in other cases much higher copper gold. So you can see, the 10 metres at nearly 8 grams gold and a bit over 1% copper was something that really encouraged us that there's a significant copper and gold credit, and perhaps copper and gold might become the dominant metals here in this prospect. The locations of those drill holes are on those two northeast, southwest trending dotted yellow and red lines, and we're really interested to see what the big red blob shows us, because that's a conductivity map, and the sulfides in the system are strongly conductive. So there's never been any drilling into that big red blob, and we're out in the field drilling it as we speak. 4,700 metre program currently underway, although it was pretty wet there on Saturday and we're kind of stopped right at the moment. What the mineralisation looks like, it's massive sulphide. It's pretty obvious when you come into the massive sulphides, and it's spectacular grade when you're in there. That 1.7 metre intersection goes nearly 50% lead and zinc combined, and 18 ounces of silver to the tonne, with a small copper and gold credit. So when you find the massive sulphides, it's spectacular grade. The imagery, it's a resistivity image on the left-hand side. Again, very low resistivity indicates that there's high conductivity in the same area, and the conductivity and resistivity images are used by the geologists and geophysicists to hone in on where the best mineralisation should be. On the right-hand side panel, the blue rectangles is a downhole EM chargeability image. So the massive sulphides is strongly chargeable in hole, so you can step away from the drill holes where you have that good EM plate response and drill 50 metres, 100 metres away and find the mineralisation again. So it's a relatively simple but very technical exploration program that we're undertaking at the moment. Other things that we like in this Lachlan Fold belt, in a belt called the Macquarie Arc. So the Macquarie Arc is the next belt across to the east of where we've been in the Cobar Basin. We picked up a project called Yarranduri about 6 months ago. The Macquarie Arc is Australia's premier porphyry copper district. So the big guys, the Newmonts with Cadia, Evolution with North Parkes and Cowell, recent discoveries by Alkane at Boda Kaiser, are all at least national class, if not world class assets. Why do we like Yarranduri? This is a picture of Yarranduri on the right-hand side. It's magnetics, and this is Cadia on the left-hand side. So Cadia is a 30 million tonne per annum producer. It's Australia's largest and most profitable gold and copper mine. For instance, they produce 600,000 ounces of gold at a negative all-in sustaining cost. So the copper production
pays for all the operations, and the gold effectively all comes for free for those guys. Nice position to be in. The comparison between Yarrandjeri and Cadia is reasonably obvious. We've drilled a single hole at Yarrandjeri so far. It does have significant cover on it, and we're in the process of doing some additional geophysics over the whole project area to find the more shallow parts so that we can start testing it at 100 to 200 metres below surface. The first hole hit 567 metres of barren sediments that lie above that geophysical image. So it's not a thing that we're going to instantly produce magnificent intersections. I think it's going to be a longer, slower burn kind of exploration program that we do at Yarrandjeri. But it gives you a flavour for the kinds of things that we're prepared to have a go at. We're going to have to sustain an exploration program over that period over a significant period of time at Yarrandjeri, I believe. South Australia, Gawler Craton. So we're the blue tenure on the top left-hand side in the northwest corner of the Gawler Craton. Gawler's Australia's premier copper producing region. The big players are, the big player is BHP with Olympic Dam, Carrapateena, Prominent Hill. We've been there for about a year, completed geophysics on the area. It was a project that used to be owned by Vale and Teck, but nothing's been done on the ground for more than a decade, coming up for 15 years now. Why do we like it? The geophysics is reasonably compelling from our point of view. So this is a magnetics picture, and we are looking for anomalies. This line of magnetic anomalies has piqued our interest. Scale here, that's about 20 kilometres east-west on that tenure. So they're reasonable size things. This is gravity over the same area, and the exploration techniques here are a combination. You're looking for combinations of gravity and magnetic anomalies under cover. The cover here is about 200 metres. But for instance, Prominent Hill, which is about 100 k's away, the cover's about 100 metres. At Olympic Dam, the cover's 400 metres. At Carrapateena, the cover's 600 metres plus. So it's not for the faint-hearted, but when you find one of these things, they're absolute, they're billion-dollar assets. It's the reason that BHP paid $16 billion for Oz Minerals a couple of years ago. So we'll be out here exploring in January. It should be lovely near Cobar Basin in about the middle of January, only about 48 degrees. But that's life sometimes. So in summary, what I think Talisman offers to our shareholders and prospective shareholders is a non-dilutionary exposure to world-class exploration success. We have smaller assets, and perhaps some of these smaller things that we might find in the Cobar Basin. We'll explore them. You find some of these smaller things as a process of looking for the larger things, and Talisman has a history of being able to transact smaller things and return those excess funds to shareholders, as it did with its Monty discovery in the Murchison some 5 or 6 years ago, where shareholders got 25 cents per share back from a sale of an asset to the next door neighbour's Sandfire. So in summary, take a look at Talisman. We're unusual for a junior, and I look forward to hearing from you. I'll be in the room next door over the course of the afternoon. Thanks very much.